Today we're going to talk about the greatest integer function. So the greatest integer function of a real number x is represented by f of x equals this weird kind of bracket around x. The definition for all numbers x, the greatest integer function returns the largest integer less than or equal to x. So it returns the largest integer less than or equal to x. In other words, the greatest integer function rounds down to a real number to the nearest integer. So we're going to work a few examples. So let's say if we plugged in 0 for x, it's going to give us 0 right back because that's the largest integer less than or equal to x. What about 0.9? The largest integer less than or equal to x, so it's going to round down, is going to be 0. And then if we plug in 1, it's going to be 1. If we plug in 1.5, the largest integer less than or equal to is going to round down, so it's going to be 1 again. And if we plug in 2, it's going to give us 2. If we plug in -1, it's going to give us -1. But how about negative 0.6? It's going to round down to the nearest integer. So that's going to be -1. So let's do a quick graph of these numbers that we found. So we're going to start off with 0, 0. And we see as long as we get close to 0, it's going to be 0. So there's going to be a hole at 1, but we're going to go towards 1. And then how about 1, 1? And the same thing is going to happen is we're going to go towards 2, and we're going to stay constant towards 2, but we're never going to reach 2. So there's going to be a hole at 2. And then we can do 2, 2. And we're going to do it constant towards 3, and there's going to be a hole at 3 because we never reach 3. We're always rounding down. And how about looking at 1, 1? We're always going to go towards 0. But there's going to be a hole at 0 because we're never going to reach 0. We're always rounding down. And so it's the same pattern. So 2, -2, -2, we're going to go towards -1, but we're never going to reach -1. -3, -3, we're going to go towards -2, and we're never going to reach -2. The graph above looks like a staircase, a series of steps. So the greatest integer function is sometimes called a step function. Let's list some facts about the greatest integer function. The first fact, the greatest integer functions are piecewise defined. The domain of the greatest integer function is all real numbers, and we denote all real numbers by this scripted R. The range for the greatest integer function is the set of all integers, and all integers is represented by this scripted Z. 3, and we're going to talk about the intercepts. So we're going to have y-intercept, and we can see this from the graph. Our y-intercept is going to be 0. Now what about our x-intercept? Our x-intercept is going to be all these numbers from 0 to 1. So it's going to be inclusive of 0, but not 1 because we never reach 1. So it's going to be the interval from bracket 0, comma 1, parentheses. 4, the greatest integer function is neither even or odd. And 5, last fact, the greatest integer function, the graph of the greatest integer function, is not continuous.